Hi, I'm Brian. Kettle's on, make yourself a cup of tea. Now today I want to talk about Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. It is expected to have the worst opening weekend ever for one of the MCU films. Now according to this article on Bounding into Comics, it says Marvel Studios and Disney's upcoming Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings, starring Shimu and Aquafina, I apologise if I've pronounced either of those names wrong, is expected to have the worst opening weekend ever for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Box Office Takings website Box Office Pro predicted earlier this month that Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings is only expected to have an opening weekend between $35 million and $55 million. If this prediction holds, Shang-Chi will have the worst opening weekend in the Marvel Cinematic Universe ever. The current holder of that title is Universal's The Incredible Hulk, starring Ed Norton and Liv Taylor. The Incredible Hulk had an opening weekend of $55.4 million. However, if you factor into inflation, the opening box office weekend would be $70.2 million in 2021. Not only is Shang-Chi predicted to have the worst opening weekend in the Marvel Cinematic Universe history, but is predicted to be the worst performing MCU film at the box office for its entire run in theatres. Box Office Pro predicts the film will earn between $100 million and $165 million. Looking at the top end, if Shang-Chi earns $165 million, the only film it would best would be The Incredible Hulk, which grossed $34.8 million at the domestic box office. However, if you factor in inflation, it gets handily beaten, as The Incredible Hulk grosses in today's dollars would be $170.9 million. As for why Shang-Chi's opening weekend and total gross numbers are so poor, Box Office Pro claims one of the main factors is a rise in severe virus cases and hospitalizations amongst the unvaccinated population. According to the University of Minnesota's Carleton School of Management, and it goes on to say that hospitalizations have increased throughout August. However, blaming the pandemic doesn't really make sense, when the CEO of Live Nation is claiming that live concert tickets are being sold out faster than ever. CEO Michael Rapino said during the company's first quarter financial call in May, fans are buying tickets and events are selling out faster than ever. Which I do believe. I mean, people are wanting to get back outside and they're wanting to do things again. After being stuck inside for about a year, people are eager to do things. So I do think blaming the poor predictions just on that is absolute rubbish. I don't think there's a big enough want for the film. Not many people have heard of Shang-Chi, apart from people that do know the comics. But back to the article. He added, "We're just seeing a demand beyond any other historic moment." He proceeded to point to Garth Brooks, saying, "Garth Brooks just this morning broke every Ticketmaster record. Deadline reports Brooks sold over 50,000 tickets in less than 30 minutes for his upcoming concert at Rice Eccles Stadium in Salt Lake City, Utah. The concert took place in July. See, 50,000 tickets in less than 30 minutes does not sound like people aren't willing to go to see things or do things because of what's happening. I mean, the pandemic, it can't stop people from doing stuff. You've got to try and get back to your lives. And the fact that he sold 50,000 tickets in less than 30 minutes proves that people are willing and wanting to go do stuff again. Virginia Tech Athletics just reported that the Hokies' opening game against North Carolina in Blacksburg has been sold out. The home of the Hokies, Lane Stadium, holds 66,233 people. And again, if a stadium's sold out over 66,000 seats, it just proves that people are wanting to go out and get on with their lives. They want to go see concerts, sporting events. So why wouldn't they want to go see a movie? As Fox Sports notes, Dover Motorsports reported that the recent NASCAR race at Nashville Superspeedway sold out all 38,000 seats at the facility. On top of that, Black Widow opened just shy of 2 months ago in theatres, and it had an opening weekend of $80.3 million. That was good for the 6th worst opening weekend for an MCU film. Still, it outperformed Ant-Man and the Wasp, Thor, Ant-Man, Captain America the First Avenger and The Incredible Hulk. However, it would end up as the 5th worst MCU film on domestic gross total. It only beat Thor, Ant-Man, Captain America the First Avenger and The Incredible Hulk. If you factor in inflation, the only film it beat was The Incredible Hulk. Aside from the pandemic, Box Office Pro also points to the fact that Shang-Chi isn't a well-known character. They note, Shang-Chi himself isn't generally known beyond the most die-hard fan circles, which I think is part of the problem. I mean, it worked with Guardians of the Galaxy. They weren't well known until the film came out, but when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, the MCU was still very much building up to full steam. It was going well, and people were excited for it. They wanted to know where it was leading to, what was going to be the end payoff, which we had in Endgame. And like I've said before, I do believe the MCU should have ended with Endgame. I don't think there's anything they're going to do which will top that. I mean, the only film I'm looking forward to from the MCU coming out at the moment is Spider-Man No Way Home. But I'm more looking forward to that because of the older characters from the Sam Raimi films being in it. But back to the article. They point out that the fact that the film is releasing on Labor Day, a weekend where many people are accustomed to using the final opportunity for a vacation or break before the full-fledged return to work and school in the fall. Finally, they point to major cities like New York City requiring vaccination passes that could potentially hinder some of the family audience that would typically show up for Marvel films, given the all ages appeal. Specifically, kids under 12 who are not yet eligible for any COVID vaccines, if regional governments don't allow for exemptions. So there we have it. Shang Chi is not looking to perform well in its cinematic run. Will these predictions be on point? Well, we'll have to wait and see for that. The people I know aren't particularly excited to go see it. They're even less excited about the Eternals. I myself, I still haven't seen Black Widow because I've had no interest in that film. I believe we should have had a Black Widow film after the first Avengers movie. It would have made more sense. But Shang-Chi, he's not a character I've read in the comics, and the film itself isn't one I really want to go see. As I've said, the MCU, no matter what it does now, it's not going to do anything better than what it's already done. And rather than fade out, looking back on on the greatness it had, it should have stopped after Endgame. If truth be told, in my opinion, the MCU started going downhill before Endgame had actually come out. It got less about individual stories and more about shoehorning references and connections to any other film what they had coming out in films. I think for me personally, MCU's Phase 1 and part of Phase 2 were when it was at its strongest. But things aren't looking good for the MCU if this is true, because you've had Black Widow, which didn't perform as well as they were hoping. Shang-Chi now looking to majorly underperform at the box office. And I can't imagine the Eternals will be doing much better either. I mean, this was always going to happen at some point. Genre of movies have a particular lifespan. They come and go. Late 70s, early 80s, you had sci-fi films that was taken over by the action films of the 80s. Movies come and go to have a specific length of time. Superhero movies have been at the top for over 10 years, and a fall off was always inevitable. They're not going to stay at the top for long, and I think we are seeing the start of that. Well, I think we've seen the start of that. I think we are seeing the decline of superhero movies, and although they will still come out, there won't be as many of them going forward if this is a continuing trend. But what do you guys think? Are you going to go see Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings? Do let me know in the comments below. And that's all from me. I'm off to make a fresh cup of tea.